KTN News. Get the whole story.
"296 days to election day, and my oh my, the horses have already bolted and heading first towards State House. For any visitor to Kenya, you'd be forgiven to think that elections are being held in a week's time. But this is simply how we do it the Kenyan way, and we love it. The top two candidates are getting very entertaining, from promises of cash straight into our pockets once they get elected, new dance styles, use of slang, and even more interesting, the very evident wardrobe changes. They're just some of the issues that we'll be looking at on today's edition of Inside Politics. Remember, you can interact with us at KTN News KE. Our Twitter handle, use the hashtag Inside Politics. My Twitter handle is at FRED INDIMULI. Let's do this. Now, it was a show of might and numbers between Deputy President William Ruto's UDA and Raila Odinga's ODM party in the Coast region yesterday. Ruto, who has been on his 5-day tour of the coastal region, yesterday camped at Makadara grounds, while ODM, led by Mvita MP Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir, chose Mrima grounds in Likoni for a similar rally. There were accusations and counter-accusations on who was better able to lead the country. Our reporter Tobias Chanji attended both rallies and filed the following report.
From early morning, it was believed to be a showdown between Deputy President William Ruto-led party faction, United Democratic Alliance, and Orange Democratic Movement, ODM.
Tena hii ya leo, hata Raila Amolo Odinga hayuko hapa. Hii ya leo, Hassan Ali Joho hayuko hapa. Hii ya leo, ni watoto wao, Mishimboko, Mama Ashu, Faki, MCA wetu, Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir, yule ambaye kwamba amevaa njumu sasa hivi.
Lakini leo tumewatia adabu. Leo wote wala wanaotafuta kiti ya rais, leo wanaongea mambo ya hasla, leo wanaongea mambo ya uchumi.
While Ruto chose Makadara grounds, which is at the center of the port city, ODM chose Mrima grounds in Likoni constituency in what they termed as a sensitization forum for youths to get out and register as voters.
Tena nataka kuwakumbusha, kwa sababu naambiwa kuna wageni wameingia mjini. Wageni hawa walipoingia, tulipokuwa sisi tuko katika mstari wa mbele kuongea ya kuwa reli inaharibu uchumi wetu, tuliambiwa ya kwa sisi hatukusoma.
Kwa hivyo sisi we are about cushioning your safety net. Na hapo sasa William Ruto na hustler plan yake anachangia yale mambo yenu ambayo mnataka.
The bottom-up economic model that is Ruto's selling point gave fodder to opponents who say that it was only the ODM party and Raila Odinga who had the qualities to improve Kenya's economic status. The DP, however, dismissed Raila's 6,000 shillings monthly stipend, saying that Kenyans need economic empowerment and not handouts.
Na ndio mnaona hawa wangwana saa hizi wamekwama. Tuliwaambia tutabadilisha hii mjadala Kenya. Mutawacha rege, mutawacha mambo ya kubadilisha katiba, mutawacha mambo ya vyeo, mutawacha kutafuta mamlaka, ngojeni kwanza tubadilishe uchumi.
Alafu leo unatuambia bottom up. Bottom up waijua leo? Bottom up unaifikiria leo? Hapo ulipokuwa uko katika kiti kinaga sako kwa baka na Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta katika ile tamu ya kwanza, hii bottom up concept ilikuwa hamuna.
On leadership, DP Ruto said that every Kenyan was entitled to contest for political seats, including the presidency, irrespective of social status in the society, and dismissed what he termed as ongoing boardroom and hotel interviews.
Tutawafundisha mambo. Hapa tutawafundisha mambo. Tutawaambia sasa, kwa sababu mmekuja tunaongea mambo ya mahasla. Sasa kwa sababu mmekuja tunaongea mambo ya uchumi. Tafadhali msikuje na madharau.
Ambayo hatuwezi kujua ino wealth ino ilipatikana vipi. Ati anasema yeye alikuwa anauza kuku. Mimi naona hapa Likoni kuna vikundi wengi sana wanatengeza biashara ya kuku. Mbona sijaona mkinunua ndege?
ni wakati wa Raila Amolo Odinga ambapo kwamba Youth Enterprise Fund na Women Enterprise Fund ilianzishwa.
Terming Mombasa as the bedroom of Odinga, ODM legislatures claimed that they had already ring-fenced the region and that ODM will still remain the party to beat.
Kiburi ya vyeo, wacheni madharau. Ama ni aje ndugu zangu watu wa Kwale? Mombasa tuko. Mombasa tuko.
Sisi tunawaambia kama team B na team C na watu wa jasho mutaezana na team A kweli.
Tobias Chanji, KTN News, Mombasa County.
And that story by Tobias Chanji kicks off our discussion this morning. We want to take a look at the rallies and the race for State House. What exactly, the race for numbers, how exactly has it been this past week? Remember, Raila Odinga yesterday was not in Mombasa. He was in Isiolo. Just before that, on Friday, he had a tour of Eldoret town, and we'll be discussing that as well. Let me now introduce to you my panelists this morning, and we kick off with Gloria Orwoba, Youth Policy Analyst. Karibu sana, Gloria. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you so much, Fred.
And
good to be here.
Karibu sana. Then Dismas Mokua, Political Risk Analyst. Good to have you in studio. Duke of Mosocho. We also have Hezbo Nowila, Governance Expert, in studio with us. And joining us by way of Zoom, Mark Bichachi, Communications Strategist. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's been quite a busy week. A lot has changed. The numbers at these rallies, it's also quite interesting. You saw what happened in Eldoret when Raila Odinga visited, and you can see what is happening in Mombasa. The Deputy President spending 5 days there. What exactly does that mean? When exactly did the Coast region become a swing vote? Because now that is what it's being touted as. Is it after the current governor of Mombasa, Ali Hassan Joho, dropped out of the presidential race? Now, that is where we kick off. Before we even talk about the kind of promises made, just a discussion about the rallies so far, the kind of numbers we've seen, because it looks like a step up from both sides of the coin. Let's kick off with you, Gloria. Let's start off with the lady. How have you seen, what's your perception about the rallies, the kind of numbers seen in Eldoret? Did you expect that kind of turnout for Raila Odinga tour of Eldoret town?
Yeah, absolutely, because you know, Fred, we've changed how we are actually politicking in this country. And before I even go to the numbers and what I think about that, it's important to know that in this race, from Thursday, we had Raila Odinga have 3 rallies between Thursday and today in Isiolo, in Eldoret, and in Nairobi. And from Thursday up until today, his competitor, William Ruto, actually had over 15 rallies in the greater coastal region. So, you know, when you also start analyzing, you know, the kind of crowds and things, if you have 3 days to mobilize for one rally, yes, you will get the kind of crowds that you saw in Eldoret. Also because the electorate wants to hear from everyone. So it does not give, it's not really an indication of, you know, these are the crowds we have, so therefore it translates to the votes. Right now, the electorate is very aware on, you know, the people that are out there, the candidates that are coming to give them the promises, whether or not they're legitimate. And so the electorate will come out. As a matter of fact, if you follow even Musalia Mudavadi's rallies, it's shocking to see the kind of crowds that he is managing as well to convene. So at the end of the day, I would say in terms of numbers and the crowds, that's really not an indication of the votes. But what is refreshing is that we are now actually talking about issues. People are coming out to actually say, other than me telling you Tibim, Tialala, or whatever, you see now Raila Odinga has been forced to do something about the youth. He has actually been forced to now, you know, start dishing out these promises of money.
And before we get to the promises, yes, the kind of numbers we see may not necessarily translate into direct votes, but it's a kind of reception we're seeing and the kind of behavior we see in these rallies. For example, in Mombasa, 2 parallel rallies, no incident whatsoever. Both sides carried on their events peacefully, and everything went on smoothly. And even without them translating necessarily into votes, but just the kind of behavior between the politicians and the electorate. Dismas, what is your opinion about this?
That you can have multiple rallies in one place and there is no violence. That is a good thing, meaning that as a democracy, we are beginning to mature and people are coming up to the marketplace to listen to the ideas presented by the various presidential candidates. And I think moving forward, this is what we must encourage, that every single politician in Kenya must be given the opportunity to go and present his ideas, and then for the audience to take a decision whether or not the ideas make merit. But going to the first item that my colleague Gloria has spoken about, the political rallies, that is now called voodoo analysis. Because, I mean, how do you start saying that Raila Odinga has done 3 rallies and we've done 15 rallies, therefore we are a success? Really, the number of rallies does not matter. And for persons who have interacted with politics and politicians for a long time, there is the Pareto's principle that you can do 1 rally which has got the impact of 50 rallies. So there's a very high chance that Raila's 1 rally would have the impact of 50 of William Ruto's rallies. So really just trying to take the rallies and using them as a basis of anything, that doesn't matter. And then number 2, the probability that the coastal region is going to be a swing vote or a swing base is almost 0. And simply because ODM has got a very stronghold over the coastal issues, and the people in the coast appreciate what ODM can do and the capacity of ODM to deliver. And in as much as people may think that the people from the coast do not have a solid understanding of national issues or political issues, the people in that part of the world are very sharp, and when they express themselves, they do it in a very profound manner. So anybody who is again trying to tell us that Mombasa or the coastal region is going to be a swing vote is going back to what people refer to as toxic politics, you know, lies, fake news, alternative facts. So that it boils down to that.
Most for that. Let's bring in Mark Bichachi into this conversation, because the kind of activity, Mark, we've seen in the last 2, 3, 4 days is quite heightened. Gloria pointed out that the Deputy President has held 15 rallies. He's spending at least 5 days. He's still in Mombasa. He's still in Mombasa today, even as we speak. He's set to hold another meeting in Meritini, and probably if we get that signal, we might air it as well. But you've seen also the kind of activity that Raila Odinga is engaging in within 3, 4 days, moving from Turkana, Eldoret, Isiolo. He's still in the northern part of the country. Definitely heightened political activity between these 2 candidates. You may decide to draw parallels with what is happening with the other candidates who've declared their interest in the top post.
Well, you know, Fred, the thing about crowds and numbers is that depending on whose crowd it is, if you ask Gloria or Woba, those 15 rallies, if those 15 people who showed up are really going to vote for Ruto and it shows that Ruto is popular, she'd say yes. If you ask someone from ODM, whether the hundreds of thousands of people who showed up to cheer Raila Odinga in Eldoret will definitely mean that now Eldoret is a swing vote, they'll tell you yes. Now, that is the kind of roadside, by the way, propaganda that we need to push. But our job here is to look at the crux of the matter. And what is the crux of the matter? The crux of the matter is this: that William Ruto has been on the campaign trail since 2018, ever since the handshake happened. Raila Odinga has been on the campaign trail for 2 weeks. Now let us measure 2 weeks of results versus 3 years of results. Secondly, let us also be quietly and definitely aware that in all this time of campaigning, William Ruto, as base in Rift Valley, is the only thing that he seems to have locked in. The only hustlers he knows that are within that basket, lock, stock, and barrel, are Kalenjin Rift hustlers. He's not been able to convert more than 50% of Mount Kenya hustlers, not been able to do 20% of hustlers in the coast. And the reason he is spending such a frequency, such an inordinate amount of time, is simply because if you take a girl out for the first date, it does not work. Then you need to come back with chocolate, flowers, a car, and you borrow from Dismas, one of his top of the range vehicles, to go impress her. So William has realized and he's woken up to the reality that he needs to play catch up with the rest of the country. Raila Odinga, on the other hand, is seeming to have been a giant that was sleeping for a while, and when he stars but a little bit, just one rally, not 15, just one rally in Rift Valley gave UDA shivers. Another trip in Central gave them shivers. So this is the reality, that 4 years of campaigning is being threatened by 2 weeks of campaigning. And the other thing is, if you've realized, now that there is no reggae to speak about, there is no BBI to shoot down, this bottom-up economic model seems to be in dire straits because there is nothing to explain. There is nothing there. So the emptiness of it is also causing audience fatigue, because the audience is waiting for substance, it's waiting for something more. And then you show up and you say, wakuje na wasitutusi, wasituchokoze, yet I have not had an insult being thrown his way. So it's the same old talking point, all fluff, no bite.
But Mark, it's also quite interesting that we seem to be talking about two candidates only so far, and Hezbollah Nobila, I'd want you to chip in on this. What has happened to the rest? Because quite a number of people have declared interest in the presidency. All the major luminaries within the One Kenya Alliance have all declared that they are going for the top job, but we are not seeing as much activity from them as much as we're seeing from these other two candidates. We've been accused of focusing too much on on these two candidates, but clearly, what can we say about the rest? Hezbollah.
Well, I think if you look at the major contenders, Raila, William Ruto, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Gideon Moi, and even Moses Wetangula. I mean, all these, leaders can actually make presidents, and all of them can actually give us, top of the range policies on how they're going to transform this country. But I think an election needs much more than, the agenda and the policy that you have. An election needs the capacity to win. And I think that is what is putting, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Deputy President, at the forefront and as the major contenders in the public domain. In as much as we know that, their manifestos and their policies are not really clear as it were right now, they are the only two candidates who have demonstrated the capacity to win an election. And even if you have good policies, if you cannot win, I think it would be less of a public interest.
It's a money issue, resources, because the kind of activity moving from Eldoret to Turkana, Isiolo, within 1-2 days, spending 5 days at the coast, moving from one county to another.
I don't think it's so much about a money issue, but I can tell you there is no election without resources. So money is a big factor. There is no way you can have good strategies and say that they are good. They will mean nothing unless there is resources to push those strategies and help people understand how they will change their lives. But I think for me, it is a question of how many people believe in the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Deputy President and can channel their resources to them to facilitate that movement, all over the country. But let me come back to the issue of rallies. I think I echo what my co-panelists have said, that it's a good thing. It's a development in this country to have ideas contend and not personalities. When people attend rallies and listen to all these political leaders, you have Raila in Uasin Gishu. I think the Deputy President went to my home county of Migori, and the reception was fairly, good. And I would want people to reject, politicians on the basis of their agenda, their track record, and what they promise Kenyans, and not because of where they come from. But I think having said that, I think there are two things that come to the fore. First, we must be clear that there's a problem in this country. When on a weekday you have such large crowds with this COVID pandemic, we also need to talk about impunity. We cannot have the curfew and all the protocols, and then we celebrate these rallies. And I think that is something that we need to put in perspective. Okay, and then number two, yes. I think it's at the point where we are, the war is so much on perception. I don't think there is anyone who is winning anything. These two presidential candidates are actually trying to gain that traction and create that perception. And that's why you hear Gloria talk about numbers. When you rally people along numbers and you're not looking at the substantive issues, then you actually realize that this is just a war of perception, and they want to create perception that they have crowds, they can pull rallies all over this country. But I guess moving forward, it will reach a point where we'll start interrogating these things. Like the 6,000, we will have to interrogate
I want us to come to that now, because definitely perception does matter and the numbers do matter, whether real or not. But Gloria, let's now look at the issue of the campaign promises. So far, we've had the economic models being bandied around because that seems to be like the central discussion, economics. Most of the campaigns we've had, most of the pronouncements from these top two candidates have been around the economics, bottom-up approach. And now the big one that came out this past 1 week, Raila Odinga promising to actually give more than 2 million families 6 million shillings a month, which translates to about 144 billion shillings per year. Now, these are very serious promises. More than 290 days to the election. What can be said about such kind of pronouncements this early on in the campaigns?
Fred, as you have rightfully said, now all the candidates suddenly are focusing on the economy, which is a good thing. But that's why I was laughing when I heard Mark Bichache talk about that William Ruto is playing catch-up. The person who actually introduced that we are now on issue-based politics was William Ruto when he brought up the Hustler Nation movement, when he started talking about the bottom-up economic approach. And then you will realize even Musalia Mudavadi suddenly said, you know, I've been talking about the economy. That's when ODM and Baba woke up and decided, oh, you know, hata sisi tunaongea juu ya economy, and at that time they were saying buy Kenya, build Kenya, and they were very confused because they were the ones who were playing catch up. They were the ones who actually did not have an issue that they were articulating and selling to the electorate. So the only person who's playing catch up here is anyone who came after the bottom-up economic approach, and that is all the candidates that are out there. And the interesting thing about this is only after we went out with the region, when I'm saying we, United Democratic Alliance, only after we went out and approached these economic regions and actually sat down and drafted what we call the economic blueprints of the different regions, Nyanza, Coast, wherever, and then ODM realized that, oh my goodness, these people not only have an issue that they are promising the electorate, but they have gone further down to even organize themselves in those economical, regional economic blocks, and they're actually doing something to come up with the blueprints, which will eventually make the final manifesto. So, you know, the only thing that is worrying me is now how suddenly the youth have been, you know, thrown into the mix. How suddenly, you know, we saw Baba the other day purporting to be addressing the youth in some forum, and wakituambia kanaironi yetu and things like that, and the focus was on the shoes and the focus was on sheng and the kind of language that you talk to the youth. But at the end of that forum, all those youth who were sitting in there, when they were being questioned, so you have gone, you have had discussions with Baba, you have told Baba this is what we want. What have you come out with? Do you even have some sort of framework, anything that they said, you know, we'll start from here? They had nothing. And this is the issue with this whole shift from the tribal politics and that kind of empty promise politics into the issue-based politics, is those who are not used to actually offering the electorate anything are suddenly caught, you know, unawares. So therefore, that's where you hear Baba saying, tutawapatia to 6,000, you know, for this kind of families. And there's really no plan. There's
Gloria,
actually
but don't you think it's a welcome change from the kind of rhetoric we've been hearing? You just mentioned the fact that politics has been more about our regions, our tribes, and how we're going to get more numbers than the other person. But now that the candidates are focusing on real issues that could affect you directly, that it's a welcome change.
What we welcome, Fred, is the fact that now we are not talking about tunaenda Mount Kenya, Wakikuyu tutawamobilize ama Kisii. We welcome the fact that we have forced everybody to talk about actual issues. And right now, the number one issue is the economy. Okay. But then, they should not hoodwink us, you know, because talking about the economy and actually trying to push this country into a recovery after the pandemic does not mean you come and stand in a podium and offer 6. How did they come up with 6,000 Kenya shillings? Okay. How is that 6,000 actually, you know, there's no thought process, it is not something you can implement. And that's why when, as much as we are saying, oh, it's good we are talking about the economy, we need to be serious when we are actually going to the electorate to promise them of anything. These have to be things that you can actually say, as a legislator or as the executive, as the president, if I come in, this is how I will implement. And that is what we have clearly put out in terms of the bottom-up economic model. So for me, someone standing and saying, I'm offering you 6,000, I would like to understand even how they are going to remove that money from
and we'll continue discussing that even after the break. But before we go on a break, I'd like to give Dismas Mokua an opportunity. 6,000 for over 2 families that are living in abject poverty. Do you think that's a proper response probably to William Ruto's bottom-up approach? He also has a proposal for a 30 billion fund for Mama Mboga and Boda Bodas. Do you think what Raila Odinga has come up with is a proper response to that?
Well, you know, now we've got into that era of toxic politics, and let's deconstruct some of the lies in this show. The first one, that it's William Samoei Ruto who started discussing economics as a campaign strategy for the 2022 presidential elections. That is a straight lie that we're being given at this show. It's on public record, and let's be fair, that the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi has been talking about public debt and the impact on our economy for the last 5 years. And he's been very consistent on that. If you go to his website, you go to his Twitter handle, he's been talking about the public debt for times above number. In fact, his political party has even sponsored a bill at the National Assembly on how to manage the public debt. Number two, one of the ODM presidential hopefuls, Jimmy Wanjigi, has come up with the economic liberation model, where he's also been discussing it as a strategy. So we must run away from these lies that it's only William Samoei Ruto who's changed the conversation. The conversation changed a long time ago when Kenyans discovered that the Jubilee administration has been running down the economy with this excessive public borrowing, you know, mismanaging the economy, that everybody today is under distress. Now, William Samoei Ruto says that he's going to be giving 100 million to every constituency, Mama Mbogas and everybody else. And Gloria doesn't question, how do you get that 100 million? But when Raila Odinga comes with 6,000 for a household, then people begin asking questions. And when you look at the Raila response, the 6,000, that was a very clever strategy to neutralize this thing called bottom-up model. Because, and I would challenge you, ask Gloria to explain to you what the bottom-up model is all about, for her to give us the building blocks, for her to give us the building pillars. If you ask anybody from the Tanga side, there are as many definitions of the bottom-up model as the grains of, sand at the Indian Ocean. So let's also, we have a national responsibility, and we've said this times above number, that when you have a national forum like this, do not start spreading propaganda, because, you know, Mura, Wanjiko, na Wafula can easily believe this in this propaganda, and you are beginning to, you know, poison the fountain of democracy in Kenya by coming with lies. And
that's why Inside Politics ensures the voices here are diverse as they can, so that we can get to hear all these opinions. Time to take a break, but don't worry, Hezbon, I'm sure you'd want to comment on that as well, the promises being given, and Mark Bichachi as well, even as we talk about the kind of transformation we are seeing in the candidates. Raila Odinga wearing jeans nowadays and attending rallies, and even serious looking for wearing jeans and other casual dressing. William Ruto has also changed his fashion sense in the last couple of months, and we'll be looking at that after the break. This is Inside Politics.